The clock on the wall has struck 7 p.m. I'd like to call the Lisle Library District Board meeting for February 14, 2018 to order. Roll call, please.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Jay Fisher.
Here.
Richard Flint.
Here.
Thomas Hummel.
Here.
Liz Sullivan.
Trustee Sullivan notified me that she was feeling well. Not feeling well, so she will not be able to attend.
Emily Swistek.
Here.
Lonnery Wang.
Here.
A quorum is present. This is an eventful day. It's Ash Wednesday. It's Valentine's Day. I think as a board would like to express our condolences to the director, Tatiana Weinstein, on the passing of her mother. This is also our first attempt at videotaping and taping our meeting, so there's a lot going on. So item 2 on the agenda is opportunities for visitors to speak, and so part of the new procedure with our videotaping is if anyone wishes to speak, would they please make their way over to the microphone and address the board through the microphone. And again, we have 5 minutes to address the board. Any of the visitors present wish to speak?
I'd just like to say that I appreciate the library board and the efforts of the board members, and I'm very happy with the library so far.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to address the board this evening? Seeing none, we'll move along to item 3, which is the consent agenda. I know, Tom, did you wish any changes?
If I could amend or tweak the minutes to the January 10th, 2018 meeting, under the discussion under line item 3C towards the bottom. I guess it would start probably around the third sentence, so after he did not want to pay the total cost of the $1,000. I would like it to say, I could give you a copy of this, Chris, if you want. Vice President Hummel stated he originally did not want to have the training as he didn't think it was necessary. He thought the training was only going to cost around $600, not this amount. He did not think the presentation was worth $1,000 and wanted to know the full cost beforehand. This could have been done as, or this should have been done as a flat fee. That's pretty much
Have any comments or any other changes that people would like to make to the consent agenda? Hearing none, can we have a motion to approve as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Is there a second?
I second.
A motion to approve the consent agenda as amended has been moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Thomas Hummel.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
She's absent.
Emily Swistek.
Aye.
Lonnery Wang.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Richard Flint.
Aye.
Motion passes. The consent agenda has been approved. Item 4 on the agenda is the director's report. So this evening we give him right back.
So Tatiana could not be here this evening. As Jay said, her mother passed away on Monday, and she will be off for a couple of days. Her director's report is within the packet, and she's provided me with supplemental notes, and I will present her report tonight with some additional information. First, in January, staff were trained on the equipment being used here tonight to record the meeting. We will upload the video to the library's YouTube channel in the next couple of days. And this is our first attempt at recording, so please bear with us in our inaugural run. In the weather news, yes, we were open for business this past Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Those were heavy snow days in Lisle, and our snow crew was here each morning, and we had the lot clear, and the sidewalks were clear each day. Staff also assisted with supplemental salting throughout the weekend. Last month, we had a very successful program in partnership with the Lisle Women's Club and the Lisle Heritage Society. The program was entitled Treasures from the Vault. It was a quilting history. The guest speaker was the executive director of the Wisconsin Museum of Quilts and Fiber Arts, and she came with examples from the museum. Attendees also brought in their own quilts and shared their stories. 79 guests attended the program, and there are photos on Flickr. And all the partners here shared in the cost of the program. There is a new art gallery exhibit at Gallery 77. It's a beautiful portraiture and still life painting by Julia Wang. The reception was held on Friday, February 9th, and the photos are also available on the library's Flickr page. Agenda item E under new business was requested by 3 board members, and Tatiana has some background on that information. And she says the LLD received a public access counselor non-binding opinion letter in January, and the board will ratify the remedy as recommended by the PAC as well as our attorney. The PAC found the board exceeded the scope of discussion followed by the OMA in an executive session meeting on May 8th in 2013. The closed session was to discuss the selection of a person or the qualities and merits of a person to fill a vacant board seat. The PAC opinion stated, the recording indicates that the board was notified of a pending vacancy and then spent the remainder of the closed session discussing the manner in which the board would obtain candidates for the vacancy. Although several members suggested the selection of named individuals, the board did not substantially discuss individual candidates and/or their merits. The suggested remedy was to provide the complainant and make available to the public the closed session recording and the corresponding closed session minutes. The complainant was provided the corresponding materials on February 5th by certified United States Post Office mail. Tatiana has a timeline here. The director notified the board president as soon as the library's attorney notified the library of the PAC opinion. Upon further clarification and materials provided by the PAC, all trustees were provided complete details and informed of the recommended remedy. Trustees were also notified when the LLD complied with the recommended remedy on February 5th. The board will ratify this remedy later this evening. Personnel policy work is included in the packet. There are drafts as recommended by the committee. These drafts include strikeouts and highlighted text. The yellow highlights show previous committee work, and the green highlights show the more recent committee modifications. And the board will vote on these policies later this evening. LLD received the library portion of the TIF surplus declared by the village in the amount of $42,865.68. As authorized by DuPage County, the village distributes the TIF surplus funds directly to the affected taxing bodies. These funds are deposited into the library's corporate fund. The board president and the director attended the intergovernmental meeting on January 18th, and the topics of discussion are noted in the director's report. On receiving a correction regarding District 202 notation, we wish to correct the report by stating that District 202 mentioned they were looking into buying property and not that they had already bought property regarding a new play area. In the realm of technology, the library had a quarterly service meeting with OSG, our out-of-house IT firm. There are a number of technology projects on the horizon for the next couple of months that include installing a new server, port mapping new switches, updating public PCs in adult services to Windows 10. Recently, the library experienced some significant connectivity issues on February 7th and 8th. Half the building was without connectivity to our main server room. We had no PCs in use services, circulation, nor at the connection desk. It also affected our voice over internet phone system, as well as our wireless connection. Our IT manager and OSG worked hard to bring us back online as of Thursday in the late afternoon. Our fiber cable infrastructure from the server room to the other areas in the building needs to be addressed in a physical way. Over the years, cables, switches, and other fixtures were added on to address IT issues or to add connectivity to other parts of the building. This add-on methodology has brought us to the point where we have a variety of differing or non-standard equipment serving our network from one end of the building to the other end, which can negatively affect lifespan and uniform performance of our network. The most recent experience mirrors what happened this past summer. Our IT manager and OSG continued to analyze the situation, and we are exploring a phase-in plan for standardizing our IT infrastructure. This month, we are asking patrons why they love the Lisle Library. Patrons are encouraged to write their enduring reasons onto a paper heart at our public service desk, and the library foyer features the loving responses, and you can take some time to look at the wonderful hearts. There's even a few right out there in the lobby for you to look at. We've had a good, the report we've gotten is that there has been a good response to this passive program. The Romance Writers Association donated $50. The RWA meets at the Lisle Library monthly to discuss and share literary projects, and we thank them for their support, and we champion their creative efforts. Lastly, there's a couple of reminders. There is a strategic planning meeting on February 21st at 7 p.m., and we have budget meetings that have been scheduled for April 4th and April 18th, both at 7 o'clock. On Friday, there is a West Suburban Library Legislative Lunch from 11:30 to 3. And on Saturday, from 9 till 3:30 p.m., there is an Illinois Library Trustee Forum workshop with breakfast and lunch. Any other trustees that are interested in attending, Trustee Flint submitted his form and information, which is in the packet. And trustees are still able to attend as long as we know tonight, and the library we could register you tomorrow, if anyone's interested. Tatiana mentions a reminder that per our procedures, we ask that trustees announce their interest in attending conferences so the board is aware of any expenditures per Illinois law. If trustees request reimbursement, we will document and vote on an open meeting for reimbursement, and this would happen at our next regular board meeting. And I think that's it for Tatiana's notes report.
Any discussions or questions about the director's report?
So Beth, thanks for the report. So what I'm concerned about is this whole connectivity issue in the infrastructure. I went to the back room, the server room. It's all the wire and everything. It's the server. I don't think definitely we didn't really think about what most efficient IT infrastructure should be. So I'm really interested in, I think this is an important topic. I would like to have at least brought into the board agenda as a report out once we have a plan. I would like to see some sort of a timeline and phase plan. I know that you mentioned they're working on it, but I would like to see if we can bring the board up to date on the periodic basis, because I think this is very fundamental in terms of running a library. And part of the infrastructure plan, I'm not IT expert, I can't really make any, but one was suggestion we thought about, at least in the corporate where you always build redundancy, right? So do we have redundancy here in the library if a server is down, and what is our plan B on this? But I would like to.
I can tell you that we do have the backup in the cloud. So we could restore to if we lost, but as far as connectivity, that's our wiring. Unless we ran new wire, I don't think there's redundancy in the wiring of for the network.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, redundancy into the network, not the backup of the materials.
Right. But I'll definitely, mention that as your concern. I know that Tatiana has planned, a list of IT issues for the strategic plan.
And I think in our budget, we actually have a category on the on IT network upgrade, right? If I remember correctly. So.
Maintenance and yes.
And Jay, you were at the intergovernmental meeting. I saw the note about Village. Are they going through a strategic plan as well? You mentioned the Village opt for strategic plan consultant.
They are as well, yes.
Okay.
That was the information from the village manager.
Thanks.
Do you have a rough ballpark estimate on what maybe the cost of that IT infrastructure might cost, or not even a wild guess?
I would have, I'm sorry, I wouldn't have any
Yeah.
idea.
Any other questions or discussion? Now you move on to the assistant director's report. Beth again.
So our digital outreach team met in January, and they were discussing levels of YouTube, since we're going to be using YouTube for our board meeting to broadcast, in a sense, or being able to access our recording of our board meeting. So they were doing a little research into that. The team also met for the February I Love My Library activity, and they're planning some posts for that. They're doing Black History Month. Each day they have an author, either youth or adult, that writes Black, African American, maybe Will can help me here.
So we're focusing on authors who are promoting diversity, particularly African American authors or authors who are promoting African American characters.
Characters, that's, yeah, okay. And also, the good news is we've had several, through social media, some interactions with the authors who we have mentioned. They've mentioned us back, so that's been exciting for the team to see. The safety team had worked on our defibrillators, making sure that they were up to, making sure that all the pieces that are inside there, there's batteries and there's pads, that they were not expired. So they've also worked on making sure that's part of our maintenance schedule. As we mentioned in here, that we had a fire inspection, fire department inspection, and they, suggested several things for us, and one of them was the AED pads. We had to move a smoke detector to the ceiling, and 3 doors had to be repaired for automatic closures, and those were somewhat considered internal fire doors, is how they described it. The planning team met, and they're working on our Harry Potter Day, which is March 10th from noon to 4:30, and the activities that we're going to have are a live owl program, a scavenger hunt, there's crafts, and a movie. The elevator door has an emergency door on the elevator control panel, and if you open the door, there is a red button to push for help. Last week we had a toddler who opened the door and pushed the button before their caregiver could stop the child. And I want you to know that the police did respond, but they were totally understanding that this happens. Finally, there's a heater that's in the emergency stairwell that goes from the second floor to the exit over by the public computers, and it goes out to the staff parking lot. This heater has a blower motor that failed, and it's probably original to this end of the building, which is 30 plus years. The vice president of the HVAC company came on that Friday when it was snowing so hard to figure out why it was putting off a bad odor, and it was being pulled into our HVAC system, that smell. So he was so kind to come during that snowstorm and being able to turn it off, and they found the replacement parts, and they were able to retrofit it to be able to fit inside that heater. So I really appreciate Monaco working on that. So I think that's it.
But is staff trained on how to use the AED, or is there specific staff, or is that self-explanatory that anyone's supposed to be able to use it, or
Both.
both?
It prompts you when you open the door. For example, if you just even open that door, it tells you that someone should be calling 911. And then it talks you through the rest of it. But the staff have also been trained, which encourages staff that if they're ever in that situation, not to be afraid to just react.
Any other questions or discussion for the assistant director?
Beth, how often does a fire department inspect the library? Is it annual?
Yes,
Okay.
it should be
Standard.
annual,
Okay.
depending on their schedule.
Okay.
They're gonna come back to re-inspect after we've done these repairs. They just haven't come yet, so.
Okay.
It's been about 5 weeks, I guess, and they said that they'd be here in 3 to 4, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion for the assistant director? All right, we'll move along to item 6, which is committee reports. Finance.
No, we did not meet, no report for this.
I just got one quick question. And what investments were purchased in January? I see it was $63,050 worth. And I went to look on the sheet and I didn't see it, so I don't know if there was just a time lag or did I miss it? Was there an investment purchased in January for $63,000?
Yeah, there was. Go ahead. Ginger. There was one purchased. Can I get back to you on
Yeah,
that?
it's, I thought maybe I missed it too. I thought my eyes were.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I did say there's a January investment
Okay,
report.
that's fine.
The statement that came back, but let me go back.
That's fine.
Get back to you.
And then on the revenues, under interest income, it said we had
Yes.
negative 12,535 in January for interest income. Is that in the,
Right, that's part of the, it also includes the investments, so.
okay.
Well, that's kind of a net, right? It's more of a cash inflow and outflow, not necessarily the interest, negative interest.
Right. Tom, it was the one, the Fonda last one, it was actually the end of December, but because it didn't settle until January.
Gotcha.
we didn't report it yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the treasurer? All right, personnel policy?
We met on January 17th, for 2 hours, a little more than 2 hours. And the fruits of our labor are the policies under new business. We don't have another meeting scheduled. We're going to wait to see how the strategic plan discussions, the budget discussions roll out before we know how much time we have to cover.
Thank you. Physical plant?
Not at this time. It's the same thing. If it, again, if we want to maybe do a tour of the building again, I don't know if that will fall under strategic plan or physical plant. We'll see. Plan
Excuse me. Item 7 on the agenda is unfinished business, which I don't believe we have any of. So we'll move along to item 8, which is new business. Item 8A is ratify legal representation.
I'd like to table 8A actually.
We have a motion. You need to table to a specific time, I believe.
I would like to reconsider this because I'm not 100%.
Well, first.
Okay, you need a second.
Yes,
Okay.
first you need, so was your motion,
To table.
I believe the last time we had this discussion, we believe that under Robert's rules, the proper procedure is to table it to a specific time.
Table it to this, what was it, February, so March board meeting.
So we have a motion to table 8A to the March board meeting. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second that.
There is a motion and a second. Discussion?
There's no reason to table it.
I'm not 100% satisfied the way Roger handled this PAC violation. I don't know why it took over a week for him to inform staff of it. I'm not even sure why the letter went to him originally anyway. And also, I don't know why he didn't maybe give us the advice to release this letter or the minutes 5 years ago when the infraction took place, so.
Because it wasn't an infraction. Certainly it wasn't defined to be that 5 years ago. I'll say more about that when we come to the new business item.
Well, I mean,
Your lawyer can't just say, well, that's an infraction. That's the PAC that it is, not him.
but he
He had no role.
well, apparently he did though, he gave it.
When they made the determination, which I will discuss
But
in a
he
minute.
should-
When he made the determination, which I will discuss in a minute, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. End of conversation.
But no, not really, because he could have said, oh, I think you, after he listened to the tape, he says, well, I think you guys violated OMA, you should, we
Maybe
could
he
just say-
doesn't think we did. The PAC does. Maybe he doesn't.
Is there further discussion on the motion?
I also have questions regarding the time involved from when Roger was notified electronically and when the board was notified. And with Tatiana not here, I think it's not fair to go into that discussion. I'm sure she could provide some valuable feedback. So I can't see the harm in tabling it until March 8th. That would be my comment.
Or March, I don't know if it's the 8th, it's whatever.
March 14th.
What, thank you.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, my question is that we just need more understanding on the circumstances around how he handled it, or you think that will reflect whether we're going to choose him at?
That combination, and maybe it's time to maybe relook at the whole RFP. Maybe we should either reopen that or, I mean, there's other things. I mean, this, you know, we kind of made the decision last meeting to stick with the devil we know, so to speak. Then,
Your words.
yeah, and then it's like, whatever, a week later, it was something else just popped up against with this. So.
Because we had an extensive discussion last time. There was a pros and cons on all the, four candidates, and there was kind of a consensus, I would say probably strong consensus around the team that that's the legal firm we want to choose. So there's one thing to say, well, because of this, we may have a second thought. Another thing to say, as we choose him, there's ways of working we should be addressed up front. So to me, there's two different issues, not, but, that's kind of my opinion. But.
Is there further discussion on the motion? So we'll have a vote on a motion to table item 8A till the March meeting. A vote of aye is to table, a vote of nay is not to table. Roll call, please.
Liz Sullivan,
Snaggy.
Emily Swistek,
Nay.
Laurie Wang,
No.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Richard Flint,
Nay.
Thomas Hummel,
Yes.
Jay Fisher.
Nay. Motion fails.
I'd like to move that we approve the legal representation of Roger Ritzman and I think it's Robin Schwartz.
Robin Schwartz.
End of sentence.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Emily
Aye.
Swistek,
Oh,
Means-
sorry. I means yes to ratify, to retain Peregrine, Stein, Newman, Ritzman, and Bruckner as the library's primary legal counsel with Robin Schwartz as a supplemental counsel. Thank you.
Emily Swistek,
Aye.
Laurie Wang,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli,
No?
Richard Flint,
Aye.
Thomas Hummel,
No.
Liz Sullivan, Jay Fisher.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8B is the approved policy 325, schedule of fines, fees, and financial transactions. I will let the chairman of the policy and personnel committee lead the discussion.
There's not much to discuss. The fruits of our labor are as they appear. In your packets, we just updated some fines. I think we removed the fine for internet use for visitors, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, is there a motion to approve policy 325?
I move that we approve policy 325.
And is there a second?
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
The only thing I'll add to is, the other thing we did is with borrowing privileges for residents, if they amass $10 in fees, they still will have internet access, they just won't have the borrowing privileges, so.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Laurie Wang,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Richard Flint,
Aye.
Thomas Hummel,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan, Emily Swistek.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have approved policy 325, schedule of fines, fees, and financial transactions. Item 8C is approved policy 340, internet access and public computer use.
Again, we've read the policy. This might be, I may have spoken incorrectly before. This may have been the one where we removed the fine, removed the $2 fee for guest users. Anyway, it is, as you see. Committee, do you have any other discussion?
It was 325 that had the fee. This was just about This was just about computer usage and the internet.
Well, 340 mentioned the
Did it mention
$2
Oh,
on
it
the
did,
second
yes.
major
I see
paragraph.
It. I see the cross out now, yep, the strike through. So yes, it did, you're right, Richard.
And
I've stumbled blindly into the truth.
And this policy hadn't been revised since 2003, so some of the terms, the wordage, just the understanding of the internet kind of
We
changed.
predict social media.
There you go.
Take that down.
Right.
So is there a motion to approve policy 340, internet access and public computer use?
I move we approve policy 340, internet access and public computer use.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Richard Flint,
Aye.
Thomas Hummel,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan, Emily Swistek,
Aye.
Long Ray Wang.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have approved policy 340, internet access and public computer use. Item 8D is the last policy, approved policy 805.
Regarding conference and meeting attendance, we had quite a discussion about this, and the major change, there were two. Number one, trustees would be encouraged, and the library will endorse their conference attendance if, as regarding trustees, the conference is specifically for trustees. And if it's an Illinois-related event.
Is there a motion to approve policy 805?
I move that we approve policy 805, conference and meeting attendance.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
A motion by trustee Swistek and seconded by trustee Flint. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, move along to a vote, please.
Richard Flint,
Aye.
Thomas Hummel,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan, Emily Swistek,
Aye.
Long Ray Wang,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have approved policy 805. No, yeah, 805, conference and meeting attendance. Item 8E is, as the director mentioned in the director's report in regards to the PAC letter, which we were notified in February that in a non-binding decision that, in their opinion, that we had violated the Opens Meeting Act by going into closed session and going beyond the bounds of what they felt was proper. As Beth mentioned, the recommended remedy was to give the complainant the copy of the closed meeting minutes as well as the audio tape, which was done by certified mail on February 6th.
5th, I think,
Fifth.
on the
Okay,
Monday.
On the Monday, yes, thank you for correcting. Several of the trustees asked to put this as a specific item on the agenda, which I decided to do. So I'm asking for the board for ratification for the action that we took between the director, the attorney, and myself to comply with the suggested remedy from the Public Access Counselor. Before we get into discussion, is there a motion to do so?
I'll make a motion to approve the ratification of action complying with recommended remedy for the PAC letter.
There was a motion, is there a second?
I second that.
I guess, put it to trustee Bartelli. So now is there discussion on this item?
Yes, a couple of points of clarification. First of all, I'm surprised that the complainant received a copy of the recordings before the board ratified it. Number two, the remedy that was written about by the Public Access Counselor was non-binding, was not binding, which means that it was suggested, it was a request. We didn't have to do it. Third, I happen to disagree with that determination. The relevant statute refers to the selection of a person to fill the vacancy. That is exactly what we did. We discussed the selection. The statute doesn't say that we can only go into closed session to discuss the names. It says the selection, and that's what we did. We discussed the selection. So I actually think there's no action to take. That's all.
In response to that, Richard, in my discussions with the director as well as the attorney, I raised that issue in regards to whether that was an action that the board president should take or whether it should go before the board. And the attorney's response to me was that looking at the history of the way that things are done in the district, that would be something that should fall to the board president, which is why I took the action that I did.
Yeah, I figured that out. I just happen to disagree with you.
Okay. Thank you.
And not to go back, but that's one of the hesitations I had in 8A action. You might be shocked with that, but I didn't. But I think that might.
You can't shock me, Tom.
Yeah. So.
Although I do, if you're indirectly agreeing with me, I appreciate it. Although I'm not shocked.
So.
Is there further discussion or questions from the board as regards to this topic?
I think we should release the tape. I actually think we should. I would actually like a list of any of the PACs. I actually thought this one was settled a while ago, to be honest with you. I was a little stunned when this came in, but I would like a letter or notification of any outstanding PACs we have left. I know there's the one from May 29th of 2013, and I think we should go through and I actually did call the PAC counselor the other day, and I asked them about if we were to release any minutes or tapes of any outstanding PACs, would that satisfy them? And they say, typically speaking, and normally it does satisfy the request, because the requester gets what they want, and then that takes care of it. So I think we should revisit this again also next month, or by next month have a list of the PACs and go through minutes, tapes, and decide if we should just release what we can and get these things off our, clean up any outstanding issues and just start with the clean slate. I mean, I think it's good to release the tape.
This may shock you, but I disagree with you. To release in advance of a PAC binding, even a non-binding one, people need to understand how this goes. So if a member of the public feels, for whatever reason, that the board did something improper or went improperly into executive session, they may contact the PAC. Almost always, the PAC sides with the person complaining. Not always. I think last spring of 17, we found that they disagreed with the complainant, but almost always they do. So we can sort of take that for granted. But the responses, the findings come in two flavors, binding and non-binding. Binding, you're nearly, but not entirely, bound to do their remedy. If you don't want to, you'll have to go to court. And sometimes the courts disagree with the PAC. There's some tension between courts and PACs. If it's non-binding, you can respectfully disagree with the PAC and not follow their remedy. And there's nothing they will do, although the complainant may escalate it. So it's a little bit complicated, but because, I'll just repeat what I said, because it was a non-binding opinion that I think is just obviously wrong. I mean, a public access counselor is just a lawyer. They don't have any metaphysical gifts. They're just a lawyer, okay? And in this case, I just think it's obvious that they misread the statute. And I'm not a lawyer. So anyway, I think as regards the vote, I'm going to vote nay on following the remedy. And as regards Trustee Hummel's suggestion to just release all the records out there that are subject to PAC scrutiny, I do not think that would be called for or wise.
I like to err on the side of transparency, so I think it's good. I mean, technically closed session minutes are to discuss things. There are restrictions of what you could discuss in closed session. And eventually everything, most everything, probably except for maybe personnel issues, are eventually supposed to see the sunshine, to be an open session, whether it's other things that are discussed. So I do think it's good to have more transparency. I mean, so I think it doesn't hurt to go back. And there might be some of the PACs that we say, you know what, yeah, this should stay closed. And there's other ones we could say, no, this should be released because it's not, there's no need to keep it closed any longer. But I never listened to the tape because actually I wasn't even on the board at the time. This was, I think, the meeting prior to me taking office. So I don't even know what's on the tape, to be completely honest with you. But I mean, it's good to, and I mean, I got to disagree. I mean, the PAC is not just a lawyer. It is an Illinois Attorney General's office. I mean, it is the chief, I don't want to use the wrong term, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but it's like the chief law enforcement, I guess, I don't know what the terminology I want to use, but they are the chief attorney, if you will, of the state. So, I mean, they got a little bit more of a leg to stand on in that office. I mean, that's why this goes before them. And, you know, regardless if it's a non-binding or binding, I think it's bad when governments spend taxpayers' dollars to fight binding or non-binding opinions to not release to the public. I think once the Attorney General says release it, it should be released. So.
Any other members of the board wish to add to this discussion?
I would agree with providing a list of the outstanding PACs for review. I don't necessarily agree with releasing all of them, but I think it's a good idea to review, just see what is out there and what's outstanding.
Because I didn't even know this one was still outstanding. I'm privy to one, which I try to, you know, move along. But when this one came through, I'm like, I thought this one was settled. I didn't even know. I didn't.
I'll tell you something else. The person who complained about this, of course, had not heard it. And the reason for flagging it to the PAC was that we had a trustee who was retiring and told me privately that that the person wanted to discuss this in private session. The complainant told the PAC, unless I'm wrong, I don't think I'm wrong, that there was no impending vacancy, that there was no one leaving the board. That was the violation, that we went into private session with no one leaving the board. And why that person would think that is just beyond me. They had no, now that's not the basis that PAC used for finding a violation. They thought that our conversation was too various.
But there wasn't a vacancy at the time.
The person asked for the executive session because she was planning to leave the board, she or he was planning to leave the board, and wanted to discuss this.
But
Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, so we've already complied with recommended remedy, correct? So this is just putting on record if we, as trustees, agree with that, because it's already happened?
Yeah, there was.
I mean, I understand that you already, so I just want to clarify what we're doing here.
Yes, and there was some question from some members of the board whether I had the authority to do that,
Okay,
as Trustee Flint mentioned.
okay. But I mean, it's not like this is going to do anything because it's already been remedied.
Correct.
Okay,
Just
thank you.
given the imprimatur of the board upon an action.
Yeah, and, you know,
Thank you.
my perspective, I kind of support Tom's notion about increased transparency. I think at a minimum, I think as a board members, we probably want to know what is outstanding because this really become a surprise. Of course, I wasn't on the board back then, and so you kind of take a lot of time to kind of, for us even to understand what was the kind of background behind it. It would be nice for us to know what is outstanding, and then as a collective board, we can say what we think will be appropriate to release or not. That's kind of my view.
Certainly would be helpful to know what's outstanding.
Yeah.
But, you know, we should wait on any outstanding till we hear back from PAC before we prematurely release things.
Right.
Oh, sure.
In my opinion. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call, please, sir.
All right. Thomas
Remind us
Hummel.
about the ayes and nays, Jay.
Okay, so the ayes is to Ratify the action that the board president took to comply with the remedies in the PAC letter.
Thomas Hummel,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan, Emily Swiestak,
Aye.
Laurie Wang,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Richard Flint.
I'm going to vote nay, not because of Jay's action, but because of the PAC's remedy, so nay.
Thank you. On a vote of 4-1, the motion passes. Before we get to the last two items, which is the semi-annual review of executive session minutes and recordings, we will need to go into executive session. So can we have a motion, please?
I make a motion to go in executive session under 5 ILCS 120/2C21, discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under this act, whether for purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by section 2.06.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
There was a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Liz Sullivan, Emily Swiestak,
Aye.
Laurie Wang,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Richard Flint,
Nay.
Thomas Hummel.
Aye.
By a vote of 4-1, the motion passes. We are going into executive session. So,
And we'll return to open
In
session
session.
before we adjourn the meeting.
yes. At,
At 7:47 PM.
thank you.
Do you need to turn off the camera for the
Yes, I think Chris will do that.
Actually, the camera we're gonna stop this recording
Right.
and start another recording.
Oh, yeah, whatever you guys, how you get to it.
Wish to videotape closed session? I think I would prefer not to. I don't know what the board thinks.